Speaking of fun, Rob, I'm going to have a lot of fun watching the big game. I think it's probably the biggest game of the weekend. It is the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. These are certainly two of the top 10 teams in the league. But one of them, Buffalo, despite being 10-6, might not make the playoffs. If they lose, they could miss the playoffs. They could lose and still get in if Pittsburgh or Jacksonville loses, but they're fighting for their playoff lives. If they want to control their own destiny, the Bills need to win. And I'll say this, Rob, if they miss the playoffs with a 10-7 record, when for the past several years you have been about winning the Super Bowl, when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, when your coach, Rob, put up a huge banner in the facility saying Super Bowl, that's our goal and that's where we're going, a picture of the trophy, and you don't even make the playoffs? And part of the reason, Rob, you wouldn't make the playoffs would be that you lost to the freaking Jets without Aaron Rodgers? That you lost to the New England Patriots? I mean, there's no excuses. And so, Rob, it is going to be devastating if Buffalo loses this game and misses the playoffs. So the question would be, who is most to blame? They all would be to blame to some degree. But would you be most on McDermott, Sean McDermott, the coach, or Josh Allen, the quarterback?
It's McDermott. You could replace coaches. It's hard to replace quarterbacks. You know, when you think about where they were, well, how many seconds were left in Kansas City? 13, 18? What was it?
13.
13 seconds. Like, that changed the whole franchise. They were 13 seconds away. If they, I don't know, Chris, squib kicked it.
I was going to say, that's the first thing.
First thing, squib kick it. 8 seconds go off, Chris. 8 or 9. Squib kick it. You don't kick it to the person to return it. Doesn't even make sense. Like, what? Who's coaching? I'm not even a football coach. Come on, Chris.
I mean,
squib kick it.
They thought, Rob, I think they thought, like many casual football fans would think, man, 13 seconds, it's over. I mean, it
ain't never over like that.
I'm not absolving them because that's why you get paid.
Right. You're
supposed to think beyond the casual.
Chris, you know
what I'm saying? Most people think, 13 seconds, it's over.
Just like we talk about.
You're a football coach. You're not supposed to think that way.
Shanahan, Chris, when the Falcons choked down that Super Bowl.
Yep.
They're in field goal range, kick a field goal, you're up by 11, Tom Brady can't beat you. Chris, go back and rewatch the game where they're taking a snap with time left on the clock, the play clock. Yep. Like, you're supposed to run it down all the way, Chris, every single down, right?
Yep.
So that
when you're in that situation,
so that
absolutely.
You leave less and less time for Tom Brady to march the ball down. What part don't they get? But anyway, it's McDermott, Chris. It just is. There's no way this team, you already brought it up, starting with that Jets game. Really, this team ain't making the playoffs? It went to that? I'm sorry. I know we just gave you a new contract. They letting coaches go every day, Chris, with contracts. I mean, Josh McDaniels had 4 years left, Chris. Bye. We'll write you a check. Bye. Once you realize a guy, you just have to make a change. And here's the other scary part. As you know, the windows close quickly. And like I told you before the season, I remember I picked them as a wild card, but I told you I did not like the way they were trending. I said I was out on Buffalo. Didn't I tell you that? I'm out on Buffalo.
Well, you weren't that out because you picked them to make the playoffs.
No, but I said that I don't have them. I want to go back.
You did say you were out. No, you did say you said you were down on them, but you still picked them to make the playoffs.
Right, so, yeah. But I said I was out on Buffalo like the winning a championship. This group, this team. But anyway, McDermott is the one. They lose this game and they don't get in at all, make the play. I think they'll fire
Rob,
him.
if they and look, we don't take pleasure in firing coaches.
No.
And it's interesting, Rob, because you hear people all the time that do what we do say, I don't like firing coaches or I won't fire. Well, But you don't mind dogging players.
I know.
You don't mind criticizing players when they're not doing a good job.
Right, and they get cut, and they get their livelihoods taken away from them.
They got to get rid of him, right.
Exactly, but they don't feel it's the same thing, and I agree. And those are the same guys, Chris, who will sit there and talk about how great a coach is. You know what I mean? And what he did. I got to have that guy as my coach. Well, wait a minute. So it's just when he does well? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
We're not up here whether it's a player or a coach trying to take anybody's livelihood. None of this has to do with personality, whether we like a guy or not. I like Doc Rivers, Rob. I cover Doc. All the time I cover
Who
the NBA.
doesn't like Doc Rivers? Right. That doesn't mean that when they choke with the Clippers.
We called it like it was.
Yes. And you know what? So, if Doc is mad or Chris, we just have to live with it. Right. Right? I don't know what else to say.
I'll say this. And I think you probably would say the same thing, Rob. I got a bunch of great friends. And I want to make more friends. But if I don't make another friend for the rest of my life, I'm still blessed and got plenty of friends. I don't, we got to tell the truth.
What would be the purpose of being on the radio, Chris, and doing this show? Seriously, if we're going to sit here and I know people do it and try to skate for years or whatever, and they don't want to, no, really, and they don't want to upset the apple cart, and let me just try to stay below the fray, Chris, and not get anybody. You can't. Money. Yeah, you can't live that life. I'm telling you, you just can't.
Nah, you just got to tell it like it is.
Just tell it like it is, and if people don't like it, they don't like it.
There's nothing against Sean McDermott or anything.
Because I don't know about you.
I'll say this too. I think he's a good football coach.
Yeah, but it just didn't. Didn't happen. Right.
If they go on a nice little run, then maybe things will change. But Rob, I've said this many times when I've talked about him. He did an excellent job of turning that team into a perennial playoff team. They had not been that for nearly 2 decades before he got there. And so he did a good job with that. And I think if he loses this job, he will get another head coaching job again. I'm not saying right away necessarily, but he will be a head coach again, I firmly believe. And I think that's fine. I think he should be. But if they don't make the playoffs, or Rob, honestly, to me, they have to do more than just make the playoffs for him to keep his job. Because I think the culture there is bad. And it might, whether it's his fault or not, he is the leader. You set the tone. But, Rob, they just are stale. They just, something's not right there. And a lot of times you need a new voice. You need a new voice, so I think I'm with you on that. Sean McDermott will be the one whose head would roll. As far as Josh Allen, Rob, to me, I would not make a broad, overarching statement about Josh Allen. I wouldn't be like, oh, he's not a great player. He's still a great player. I wouldn't be like, oh, he's not a top quarterback. He's still a top quarterback. I wouldn't think, oh, you can't win with him. You can't win a Super Bowl with him. No, I think they could going forward. We'll see. I will just be like, dude had a down year. Not a horrible year. His passing numbers were down almost across the board. Not completion percentage, he was up, but everything else was down. But his running, obviously 15 touchdowns. That's an NFL record along with Jalen Hurts for a quarterback. So he had a little bit of a down year, but I think they need a new coach. They need a new culture, preferably an offensive coach for him. And, they need to add some new players, get rid of some old players and things like that. But, Rob, to me, it wouldn't be like, oh, this dude's not as good as we've thought he was. Because, Tom Brady, after he won his first Super Bowl, didn't make the playoffs the next year. I get it. He wasn't Tom Brady yet. Okay, but still. Rob, a lot of people feel like once you make the playoffs, if you're a great player, once you break that threshold, and you're in your prime, you should make the playoffs every year.
Nah,
essentially. No,
there are things that happen.
Peyton Manning, Rob, Peyton Manning, after they made the playoffs the first 2 years, went 6-10 and missed them. John Elway, who Vic Fangio compared Josh Allen to, went to the 2 Super Bowls, which didn't go well for him. It was horrible in the second one, and then missed the playoffs completely. Went back to the Super Bowl the next year, then missed the playoffs completely. So this, to me, Rob, it's unfortunate. It's bad. But it's not going to make me think, oh, he really isn't that good of a player.
No. This is not an indictment. This is not a referendum, Chris, on Josh Allen. That's not what this is. And it could be a bad year, and they could miss the playoffs, and no one's going to say, "Look, you got to find a new quarterback." But this is a referendum on that whole organization, on the coach, and they have to come hella high water, Chris, make the playoffs. They just have to, because this is when you are supposed to be in the mix and you don't even make the playoffs, and you could go back to a couple of games that you should have won, that you lost. This should have been an easy ride. When Aaron Rodgers goes out, if you lost game one, Aaron Rodgers played the Jets and 9-11, Chris, and he comes out with the flag. Okay, all right. You lost to Aaron Rodgers in New Jersey. That's not the end of the world.
Yep.
He gets hurt 4 plays in, four snaps in. You can't beat that team. Oh,
that
man.
That was bad.
And they had 4 turnovers. Remember, Josh had 4 turnovers.
Yeah, he was horrible. Rob, that would cost you the playoffs.
Yep, that's the game right there.
That would have cost you the playoffs. And again, you lose to the Patriots too.